I love pixel art. I find that even decades later, the best looking games of the 90s, Chrono Trigger, Final Fantasy VI, The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past, can still be breathtaking in a way older 3D games usually aren't. That's why I take notice whenever Square Enix uses its signature HD 2D art style, and why it's so exciting to see that aesthetic expand past its turn-based roots with the Adventures of Elliot, the Millennium Tales, the first action-adventure game to get this modern retro treatment. Even though its titular hero may be wearing red instead of green, it essentially asks the question, what if Square made A Link to the Past? The answer is an adventure I never knew I wanted, one with a compelling story, impressive build customization, and a world I hope we see more of.
This light! I can tell it has all sorts of wisdom in it. I think I got stronger.
Elliot is an adventurer who helps anyone with a problem to solve.
More than equipped to deal with beast tribes.
After a summons by the king, your seemingly routine quest turns into a mission to save both the princess and the kingdom itself.
Please, Kyfried, stop this madness. You've taken this too far.
Traveling through time to do so.
Better hurry, or else I'll be too late.
Elliot is easy to root for, charismatic without ever crossing into cheesy.
Things have changed quite drastically from before I entered the door.
Traveling aside our hero in red is a slightly amnesiac fairy named Faye.
You're very welcome.
She occasionally falls into the partner who gives you the puzzle answer too soon trope, which is unfortunate.
Make those flowers bloom!
But her chattiness can be adjusted, if not turned off, and she still is a pleasant companion to have.
Yeah!
Over the span of the 20-ish hours I spent with Elliot, Faye, and the rest of the supporting cast, I grew to love this world and was invested in the lives of these characters.
I am Elliot, an adventurer.
Time travel can be a tough thing to get right in a game, and it never quite lives up to its promise here. You'll jump from age to age, but the differences between them are rather underwhelming. It's neat to find ruins of a once great building in a later age, but venture outside the city walls, you'll see the same trees and shrubs regardless of where you find yourself. Stranger still is the lack of any development in the settlements of the Beastmen tribes you frequently visit. You're telling me no one ever set up a few more tents across the hundreds of years? Enemies don't change much either. Whether I was exploring dark caves in the present day or the ancient sands of the Age of Budding, I was swinging my sword at the same slugs, rat people, and weird flying things, which means you'll have seen a majority of your foes after the first few hours.
You have them on the run, Elliot. Don't stop now.
But while the time travel might not alter them much, the Adventures of Elliot is still another beautiful example of Square Enix's HD 2D aesthetic in action. The drooping indigo leaves of Grand Tree, the crown of Mount Phoenix volcano, and the glistening structures of the grand city of Wizen are just a few of the stunning landmarks. Not to mention the creative boss sprites, such as the laser-shooting lava lizard, Salamandra, or my personal favorite, a Frogdon that rides a turtle around. Much of this adventure feels very familiar, but equipable Magicite to buff your weapons is one of the most interesting twists. This isn't an RPG where your growth is tied to stats that you gain as you level up. Instead, much of your power comes from these crystals that can either be found in chests or crafted at a special shop, using shards that are dropped by enemies. Each of the 7 weapons has a whopping 15 unique Magicite options that can be conveniently swapped in or out at any time, even during combat. Perhaps enemies are moving around a bit too much, so you want a stun effect that will let you land hits more easily. Just hop into the menu, equip a Magicite that does that, and get right back into the fight. That flexibility is empowering. There are also some awesome combinations of Magicite that turn Elliot from an adventurer into a weapon of mass destruction. For example, the bow's fire shot Magicite will give its arrows a chance to light a target on fire, while the explosion Magicite causes them to, well, explode when they hit a burning target. It's exciting to experiment and find a powerful combo like this, which can melt a boss's health bar in no time flat. Combat itself is a nostalgic trip to simpler days when all that was involved was looking at an enemy and pressing a button to swing. It feels good to just walk up and spam my sword attacks to take out enemies, but there are still ways to, quote, get good for those that want to really excel. Elliot can parry with his shield, leaving a foe dazed and open for critical hits. You can cause some enemies to explode and, in the process, damage their allies. Or you can just hurl some pots at their heads for old time's sake.
Come here!
The Adventures of Elliot is rather gracious with its revives as well, allowing you to pay to have Faye heal you back to full health. The price doubles each time, but resets when you visit certain checkpoints.
You can't let it end here, Elliot!
And this optional safety net proved to be a welcome option against some of the bosses where I needed just a little bit more life to come out victorious. However, Elliot rewards you for playing well and avoiding damage too. Every enemy you strike down will add to a chain count, and enemies drop more goodies if you reach a high enough number, making this a great way to grind for resources. But the moment you take the slightest bit of damage, the combo breaks, and you have to start all over again. Meaning you should never get too overconfident. Outside of combat, The Adventures of Elliot has a surprising amount of platforming. Leaping across gaps, diving underwater, and figuring out how to get up to some nearby plateaus all play a far bigger role than I had anticipated. Dungeons tend to feature at least a few sections that will test your dexterity, requiring you to maneuver around pits or over lava. Thanks to how tight the controls are, I generally had a good time with these sections.
So this thing moves for us. I could get used to this.
There are some handy accessories that can help you out too, such as the one that lets you briefly hover, or another that prevents you from taking damage if you drop into those pesky holes.
Now what might be in here?
Since many areas of the map can be explored in whatever order you want, you may even encounter places with abilities like Faye's warp spell that let you bypass parts altogether. The varying terrain height also allows for some fun experimentation during combat. When enemies were nearby, ledges stopped being simple hills and instead became high grounds ripe for the taking. My go-to strategy usually involved chucking bombs down on the enemies below, or sending Faye out to beat them up for a bit. Though, setting them on fire or exploding nearby bomb slugs with her magic also proved devilishly effective.
Ugh, I think we better stay away from this murk.
Traveling through time is just as convenient as traveling across the map itself. Special guideposts can be fast traveled to from your map screen at any point once they're activated. It doesn't matter what age you are in or where your desired location's at, you can get there in a flash. The maps are also covered with various markers pointing towards treasure chests, shrines to upgrade both Faye and Elliot, collectible cats, and a lot more. That's quite helpful for secret hunting, but it's actually so much information that I wish I could filter the icons out a bit or even turn them off completely for the times I simply wanted to discover things on my own.
The door is moving. Will this truly transport me through time?
Okay, let's address the moblin in the room. The Adventures of Elliot shares a lot of DNA with A Link to the Past and the Zelda series in general. A lone swordsman on a top-down quest to save a blonde-haired princess, wielding the likes of bows, bombs, boomerangs, and even a dash that you can bong into things with. You have a fire dungeon, a water dungeon, and a forest dungeon all checked off the list too, and you get a neat glowing sword. Frankly, it would take longer to list out all the things it has in common than those it doesn't. Being so reminiscent of one of the greatest video games of all time, it's hardly a bad thing. And finding all the little nods and callbacks almost became a game of its own for Zelda fans like myself. Elliot does a great job of recreating that formula while also introducing a few twists that help it stand out. But when you follow the overall blueprint so closely like this, it unavoidably puts you into direct comparison with what came before, and Elliot's quality doesn't quite reach up to the same lofty heights. The dungeons tend to lean on the simpler, more straightforward side, and I never found the puzzles to be much of a brainbuster. I can only recall a handful of times where trying to figure out how to reach a specific area on the map left me scratching my head, and people who have played a lot of 2D Zeldas like me may not find much of a challenge here in general. though I can see how this could be a good on-ramp for the genre for that reason. Of course, the Adventures of Elliot differentiates itself significantly by having multiple endings to uncover, the best of which requires a deeper dive into the various ages. There's a good amount of stuff to do and discover here. Playing through on hard, it took me just under 14 hours to get my first ending, and I found the rest within another 10. That was the perfect size I wanted from a game like this, and some of those endings were so good they may have had me holding back tears. The Adventures of Elliot, the Millennium Tales isn't without blemishes, but it's still an excellent action-adventure game that continues to prove why the HD 2D art style is among the best around. Its interesting time travel concept doesn't quite land, and not enough changing between the various time periods to keep its enemies and environments from getting a bit repetitive. But Elliot is a hero I wanted to cheer on, with a supporting cast whose stories were more than worth seeing through to the end. The Magicite system gave me plenty to min-max as I messed around with different builds on the fly, and I can't wait to see all the cool combinations people find. Though I do wish it let me make a few more discoveries on my own when it came to stuff like finding collectibles. Still, I grew to love this world and the people who call its various ages home, and I truly hope this isn't the last we see of Elliot the Adventurer and his feather red cap. For all things HD 2D, check out our reviews of Dragon Quest 1-2 HD 2D Remake and Octopath Traveler 0. And for everything else, stick with IGN.